The Jupiter 9 can trace its conception back to 1929, stemming from the Zeiss sonnar brand. That means that this lens is nearly over a century old. As you can imagine, the Jupiter 9 isn't perfect. Far from it actually, but do you really want a lens that's perfect? This particular Jupiter 9 renders colour very nicely, leaning more towards colder tones and high contrast when stopped down, which is a surprise given the age of the lens. Wide open at f2, the lens is about as sharp as a rubber knife. There's enough chromatic aberration to be classified as one of the cool kids on Instagram, and there's also this rather refined glow from the highlights. More on this later. As it isn't sharp wide open, it really does lend itself superbly to portraiture work. So I suppose now is a relevant time to bring up the B word, the bokeh. It's absolutely fan-bloody-tastic. It exhibits a little bit of swirl, and in some cases, like most vintage lenses, it can be a little bit busy and harsh. But by God, is it ever so creamy and luxurious. Why we humans have some primal appreciation for out of focus areas I will never understand. I will keep on loving it anyway. I think the bokeh has a lot of character, and I'm a very big fan of it. In addition to a lorry load of chromatic aberration, the lens also shows this weird glowing effect when wide open. For me, this is actually a good thing, however, for many people I believe this would be a turnoff. I love the way it makes the skin glow. It really makes everything look like it's out of a dream, you know, it's so creamy, and if you combine it with fog or neon signs, then you get a very nostalgic vibe from it. Almost like using a Promise filter, but with an extra layer of depth. I really love how this looks with portraits and night photography, so for me, this is another real plus. When you stop down to about 5.6, the lens is surprisingly sharp. I've used a variety of photos and stopped down to 5.6 from everything from architecture to landscapes, and it hasn't yet disappointed me. Chromatic aberration is difficult to detect, and the weird glowing is nowhere to be seen. Yes, this lens isn't as sharp as a modern equivalent, but when stopped down, you don't really need it that sharp. You get some very beautiful images that look very natural. In my opinion, the 85mm is a superb all-around lens. It allows you to be comfortable in the streets without feeling like you're shoving a camera in someone's face, and it's more precise and discerning focal length than a wider focal range. Yeah, I know, I'm hopelessly introverted. One of the nice things about the Jupiter 9 is it has a smooth aperture ring with a clicked aperture. Well, kind of. The clicky ring sets the lowest aperture and the smooth ring controls the aperture blades. What's also really nice is you get 15 aperture blades. My copy of the Jupiter 9 has quite a lot of flaring when shooting straight onto a light source, but this is non-existent when not shooting directly into a light source. If you did want to mitigate the flaring, then I would recommend having a look at the single or the multi-coated variants. I'm going to do my conclusion for the lens now, but if you want to buy one of these lenses, then I will have a buyer's guide at the end of this video for all of you who are interested. I bought my lens for only £90, which for what it is very good value. My copy has oil on the aperture blades and a slight air bubble. My local camera shop says that it cannot be repaired. How true this is, I don't entirely know. Overall, I'm really impressed with this lens. I've been testing it out for about 5 months now. It's super impressive for all the kinds of work I've been doing with it. Every portrait photo that I've shot with it has been the right balance of being pleasantly sharp without looking overly sharp. And it's also reasonably soft, which is also nice. The lens is also compact and lightweight for what it is, and it's able to resolve some truly beautiful photos of landscape and cityscapes as well. I'm really impressed by the value of this old Russian lens. As with buying any lens, you should look out for the following. Does the aperture work? Is there any fungus? Are there any air bubbles? Is there oil on the aperture blades? Is there any hazing? Is the focus and aperture ring still lubricated well and turned smoothly? This is the common checklist that you should use when buying any pre-owned lens. However, with the Jupiter 9, you will also need to pay close attention to the serial number. This is written on the ring next to the outer element. My serial number is N7406006. The N, I believe, stands for the number. Then the 74 is the year it was manufactured, so 1974. Ideally, you want a lens from 1960 or before, as this was when Zeiss worker control was still in place, effectively meaning that the lenses were all made to Zeiss's tolerances. Like me, you can risk buying a later model, but expect to see more defects like the crazy amount of chromatic aberration and that weird glow. People online state that the 1970s Jupiter 9s are the ones that usually are the worst. Perhaps I just got lucky. In addition to this, you want to look out for a red P. Usually it's written somewhere next to the serial number. This red P is much like Zeiss's red T. It means that the lens has single or multi-coating. So if you aren't a fan of flaring, then you can try your luck with one of these models instead. The original design for the Jupiter 9 was the Zeiss Sonnar 85mm f2 and never came with any sort of coating. The internal reflection was reduced in the Zeiss design by cementing 6 elements in 3 groups. This explains why we only see flaring when shooting directly into a very bright light source. This design can still be seen on the non-red P black variant of the Jupiter 9s. The chrome Jupiter 9s usually have single coating. So, once you've decided which model you want, how much should you pay? Ideally, steer clear of the cheaper models on eBay. Many of them have many problems. I bought my model for £90, but bear in mind it came with an air bubble and oil on the aperture blades. You would expect to pick one up for about £130 if you get lucky, and about £160 if you want either the red P or the chrome single coated model. If you have any further questions about buying a Jupiter 9, be sure to leave them in the comments. Hello, this is completely unscripted. This is just the end of the video. Thank you for getting this far, but it's mainly just a channel update. First of all, I wanted to give a little bit of a shout out to a friend who probably doesn't really need this public shout out, but I feel like it's appropriate. So thank you, Mariana, one, for letting me use the photographs which I took of you in this video, and two, for your birthday, because that was probably about a week ago when this video comes out. You know, this video is taking a long time to make. Next, I wanted to talk about what's happening with me. So I haven't been making videos for a while. The primary reason being I didn't have a PC for a long time. My power supply broke. It's all fixed now, as you can probably tell. And I also got a job. So I just kind of didn't have any motivation. I made a couple small videos here and there. That's unfortunate, but it is the way that it is. And so I might be around for a little bit longer. We'll see. I'm kind of like that bad parent, and this kind of YouTube channel is like my kid, you know. I'm coming in and out of its life without really any kind of expectation of when I'm coming back. Just went out for cigarettes, and it's been 15 years.